She only asked for one thing as she lay weak in her hospital bed: her father, who had walked away after a small fight. Her mother's heart broke as she dialed the number she never thought she'd call again. When he returned and saw his little girl so close to slipping away, everything changed in an instant. But what happened next will leave you wondering, can love really heal what pride once destroyed? Stay tuned because you are about to watch a beautiful story and find out what happened next. Hello, family. Welcome to Tales Haven. Kindly subscribe to my channel for more interesting stories. Thank you as you do. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. Madeline Parker never thought a small argument could break her family apart. It was a bright Saturday morning when it started. The sun shone through the kitchen window, making the dishes sparkle in the sink. Madeline was washing plates while Daniel sat at the table, drinking his coffee and looking tired. "We need a new washing machine," Madeline said, trying to sound calm. "The old one is making that awful noise again. Yesterday, it almost stopped working completely." Daniel rubbed his forehead. "Maddie, we just paid the car bill last month. Can't it wait a little longer?" "It's been waiting," she said, her voice rising without meaning to. "I'm tired of fixing everything with tape and hope. I wash all the clothes, and it's falling apart." Daniel sighed heavily. "You always think buying something is the answer." Madeline turned around, feeling her heart beat faster. "And you always think doing nothing is the answer." Their voices grew louder. Madeline didn't even notice Lily standing quietly by the doorway, holding her favorite stuffed rabbit. Her big brown eyes were watching them with worry. "You know what?" Daniel said sharply, pushing his chair back. "I need some space." "Space," Madeline repeated, her hands wet and shaking. "Over a washing machine?" "No," he said, shaking his head. "Over everything. The stress. The fighting. I can't breathe in this house anymore." Madeline felt like the floor had dropped under her feet. She looked at Lily, who was clutching her rabbit tighter. "Daniel, please," she said, her voice softer now. "Let's talk." But Daniel had already picked up his keys. He walked past Lily, placing a quick kiss on her hair. He paused at the door, not meeting Madeline's eyes. I need to think." Then the front door closed with a hollow sound that echoed through the whole house. Madeline stood still for a long time. She could hear her own breathing and the quiet ticking of the clock on the wall. Her hands were still dripping water onto the floor. Lily walked over slowly and touched her arm. "Mommy, is Daddy coming back?" Madeline knelt down and hugged her daughter tightly. "Of course he is, sweetheart. He just needs a little time." But inside, she wasn't sure at all. The fight had felt so pointless, so small, and yet it had left a huge crack in their hearts. Later that night, Madeline tried to stay busy. She folded laundry, tidied the living room, and checked her phone every 5 minutes. No messages. No calls. She laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word of the argument. She wished she had stayed calm. She wished he had stayed. She wished 100 things. Down the hall, Lily curled up under her blanket, whispering to her stuffed rabbit, "Daddy will come home soon. I know he will." But the house felt too quiet and too big for just the two of them. The next morning felt heavier than all the ones before. Madeline woke up early, even though she hadn't really slept. She tiptoed down the hallway and peeked into Lily's room. Lily was lying still, her face pale against the pillow. Madeline walked closer and gently touched her cheek. It was warm, too warm. "Lily," she whispered. Lily slowly opened her eyes. "Mom, my head hurts." Madeline felt her heart squeeze. She placed her hand on Lily's forehead again, hoping she was imagining things. But her skin was burning hot. "Let's check your temperature," she said softly, trying to keep her voice calm. She went to the bathroom cabinet and took out the small thermometer. She pressed it under Lily's arm and waited. Each second felt longer than the last. When the little screen beeped, she looked down and felt her stomach twist. 104.2 degrees. "Oh, honey," she breathed. "You're really sick." Lily coughed, a deep, rough sound that made her whole body shake. Madeline knew she couldn't wait to see if it would pass. She picked up her phone and dialed the pediatrician's office. "Hello, Dr. Whitman's office," said the nurse on the other end. "This is Madeline Parker," she said, her voice shaking. "My daughter Lily has a very high fever. She's weak and coughing. I don't know what to do." "Bring her in right away," the nurse said. "We'll make room." Madeline hung up and hurried to get Lily's shoes. As she gently helped her sit up, Lily leaned against her shoulder. Her little body felt too hot and too light all at once. "Mommy, where's Daddy?" she asked in a thin voice. Madeline swallowed hard. "He'll be here soon, sweetheart. Right now, we need to get you to the doctor." Lily nodded, her eyes closing again. Madeline wrapped her in a soft blanket and carried her to the car. The morning air was cold and sharp against her face as she buckled Lily in. She drove as fast as she dared, her hands tight around the steering wheel. At every red light, she looked back to see Lily's face. She was awake, but her eyes looked distant, like she was trying not to fall asleep. At the clinic, Madeline carried her inside. The nurse met them at the door and guided them straight to an exam room. Dr. Whitman came in quickly, his expression serious. "She's dehydrated," he said after a short exam. "And her infection looks advanced. We'll need to get fluids into her right away. I'd like to admit her to the hospital." Madeline nodded, feeling numb. She smoothed Lily's hair back as the nurse started in 4 in her tiny arm. Lily didn't even flinch. She was too tired to care. As the nurse worked, Madeline pulled her phone out again. She stared at Daniel's name in her contacts. Her thumb hovered over it. But she couldn't bring herself to call. Not yet. Dr. Whitman placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "She's in good hands," he said. "Try not to worry." But Madeline had never felt more alone. She followed as they wheeled Lily out of the room and down the bright hallway toward the hospital wing. Lily's voice drifted up, so soft Madeline could barely hear. "Mom, will Daddy come?" Madeline swallowed back her tears and gripped the side of the hospital bed. "Yes," she whispered. "He will." But as they entered the hospital room and Lily closed her eyes, Madeline knew she couldn't keep pretending forever. She had to call Daniel soon. Madeline stood by Lily's hospital bed long after the nurses left. The machines beeped softly, counting her daughter's heartbeat and breaths. Outside the window, the afternoon sky turned gray and cloudy. Lily slept, her small hand resting on top of the blanket. Every now and then, she whimpered and turned her head. Madeline felt her heart ache every time she heard that sound. "I can't do this alone anymore," she thought. She took a deep breath and pulled out her phone. Her hands were shaking as she scrolled to Daniel's name. She stared at it for a long time. They hadn't spoken since he walked out. She was afraid he might not pick up, or worse, that he wouldn't care. But Lily's voice echoed in her mind. "Will Daddy come?" Madeline pressed the call button. The phone rang 3 times before she heard a click. Daniel's voice came through, sounding tired and unsure. "Maddie." She swallowed, trying to steady her voice. "Daniel, it's Lily." There was a pause. She thought for a moment the call had dropped. "What's wrong?" he asked quickly. His voice was sharper now, worried. "She's very sick," Madeline said, her voice breaking. "The doctor said it's a bad infection. She's on fluids. She keeps asking for you." Silence filled her ear. She imagined him sitting somewhere alone, maybe with his head in his hands. "Which hospital?" he finally asked, his voice low. "St. Joseph's Children's Hospital," she whispered. "Room 302. "I'm on my way." The line went dead. Madeline held the phone against her chest and closed her eyes. A small part of her felt relief, like a tiny crack of light in a dark room. Hours passed. The nurses came in to check Lily's for and adjust her medications. Madeline stayed by the bed, stroking Lily's hair and whispering soft words. It was almost sunset when she heard footsteps in the hall. She looked up and saw Daniel standing in the doorway. He looked exhausted. His hair was messy, and he had dark circles under his eyes. But as soon as he saw Lily, something in his face softened. "Daddy," Lily whispered weakly when she opened her eyes and saw him. Daniel crossed the room in 3 steps and knelt by the bed. He took her little hand in both of his. "I'm here, princess," he said softly. Daddy's here. Lily smiled faintly before her eyes closed again. Madeline watched them, her heart full of so many feelings she couldn't name: sadness, hope, regret, and something that felt like forgiveness. Daniel looked up at her. How long has she been like this? She started feeling sick this morning, Madeline said quietly. It got worse so fast. Daniel nodded and took a deep breath. He pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down. I'm not going anywhere, he whispered. They sat in silence together, listening to Lily's soft breathing and the steady beeping of the monitors. In that quiet hospital room, something between them began to mend, thread by thread. Every little movement Lily made pulled their attention. Sometimes she moaned softly or squeezed Daniel's hand. When the nurse brought in dinner trays, neither of them felt like eating. The food stayed untouched on the small rolling table. After the nurse left, Daniel finally broke the silence. His voice was low and tired. I've missed her so much. Madeline looked down at Lily's sleeping face. She's missed you too. Every day. Daniel swallowed hard. I thought leaving would help me think, clear my head. But it just made everything worse. Madeline felt her throat tighten. She remembered all those nights she lay awake, wondering if he ever thought of them. I didn't want us to end, she whispered. It was just a stupid fight. We both said things we shouldn't have. Daniel rubbed his forehead and sighed. I know. I was angry and proud. I thought walking out would make you see my side. But all it did was hurt everyone. Madeline wiped a tear before it could fall. She had thought so many times about what she would say if he ever came back. But now that he was here, none of the angry words seemed to matter. Lily stirred and opened her eyes again. She looked from her mom to her dad. A weak smile crossed her lips. You're both here, she murmured. We are, Madeline said, taking Lily's other hand. We're not going anywhere. Daniel leaned closer. Daddy will stay as long as you need. Lily's eyelids fluttered closed again, her breathing slow and steady. The doctor came in later that evening to check on her. He looked over the charts and smiled gently. She's improving, he said. Her fever is going down. The fluids and antibiotics are working. Madeline felt her whole body relax. She let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Daniel looked up at the doctor. Is she going to be okay? If she keeps getting stronger overnight, I believe she will be, the doctor said kindly. Keep talking to her. It helps. When the doctor left, Daniel stood up and stretched his stiff legs. He looked around the room and spotted Lily's pink stuffed rabbit on the chair. He picked it up and tucked it next her side. Madeline watched him, and something soft and warm spread in her chest. Despite everything, he was still the man who knew how to comfort their daughter. That night, Daniel didn't leave. He pulled a second chair next to Madeline's and sat down again. Get some rest, he told her quietly. I'll keep watch. Madeline shook her head. No. We'll do it together. For the first time in weeks, they shared a small, tired smile. As the night wore on, they took turns wiping Lily's forehead and adjusting her blanket. Sometimes they didn't speak at all. But the silence felt different now, gentler, like a blanket wrapped around all three of them. Slowly, hour by hour, the pieces of their family started coming back together. Morning light poured through the hospital window, warm and soft. Madeline blinked her tired eyes open and saw Daniel still sitting beside Lily's bed. His head was bowed, and he had finally fallen asleep with his hand resting over Lily's small fingers. Lily stirred and slowly opened her eyes. For the first time in days, her skin looked less pale. She turned her head and saw them both there, her parents side by side. Mommy, she whispered in a small voice that was much stronger than before, can we go home now? Madeline leaned over, smiling through tears. Soon, sweetheart. The doctor will come check on you. A nurse walked in and gave them a warm smile. Someone is looking much better this morning. Daniel woke up at the sound of her voice and sat up straight, rubbing his neck. How is she? Her fever has stayed down all night, the nurse said. I think she's almost ready to go home. Lily's eyes lit up with happiness. Daddy, will you come too? Daniel looked at Madeline. His eyes were soft, the hardness gone. "Yes," he said gently. "I'll come." Later that morning, the doctor confirmed it. "She's well enough to finish recovering at home," he said, smiling. "Just make sure she gets plenty of rest and fluids." Madeline and Daniel helped Lily get dressed in her favorite yellow dress. She looked so small but so brave as she hugged her stuffed rabbit to her chest. When they stepped outside into the bright morning air, Madeline felt like she could breathe again. The nightmare was ending. Daniel carried Lily to the car and buckled her in, careful and gentle. As he closed the door, he looked at Madeline. "I want to come home," he said, his voice low but sure. "If you'll let me." Madeline's heart thumped. She remembered all the pain, all the lonely nights. But she also remembered the way he held Lily's hand and stayed by her side without question. "I don't want us to fall apart over something small ever again," she whispered. "Me neither," Daniel said. They stood there for a moment, looking at each other. Then Madeline nodded slowly. "Come home." Daniel reached for her hand, and she didn't pull away. When they arrived back at the house, Lily's face brightened. "My room," she said, smiling. Daniel carried her inside while Madeline held the door open. Everything looked the same. The couch, the photos on the walls, the kitchen with the broken washing machine, but somehow it all felt different. Warmer. Whole. That evening, they sat together on the living room floor, eating takeout dinner because no one had the energy to cook. Lily curled up between them with her stuffed rabbit and fell asleep before she even finished her juice. Madeline laid a blanket over her. She looked at Daniel, her heart full and quiet. "I'm glad you came back," she whispered. "I'm never leaving again," Daniel said, his voice steady. Outside, the sun slipped below the trees, painting the sky in pink and gold. Inside, their family finally felt complete again. And this time, they all knew just how much it meant to hold on to each other, no matter what. That brings us to the end of the story. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do, kindly subscribe to my channel for more stories, like, and share this video to your friends and loved ones. You can also comment what you feel about the story. Thanks for watching.